Hello, and welcome to part three of our photo book design series. I'm Bennett with Memento Works, and today we're doing the fun part, which is designing the book and putting your personal touches on it. All right, so let's start with the fun part. So, all the organization and setup that I did in the last video is going to really help us out now because, Canva has, a file structure that's very similar to a Windows Explorer or a Finder on Mac, where you've got folders and obviously subfolders, all that kind of stuff. What Canva does not do a great job of, and I talked about this on the last video, is if you just drag something generically without kind of putting it in the folder location you want, it's going to go to this upload folder, which is just like a catch all for everything. And the problem with that is that it's a catch all for everything and it's really hard to navigate. So, the work we did last time of putting everything into folders is really going to make things easier here. So, if I click on projects, you can navigate to your folder structure. And uh, as long as you remember where everything is, you can navigate there. Okay, so you see here is my folder structure with all my pictures. And like I said, I like to go in chronological order. But before I do that, just because you're going to be looking at it all the time, I like to make the cover and kind of get a general sense of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to do that first, even though the picture that I'm choosing is not in chronological order. It's this one down here. Let's see where we have it. That's this guy right here. Just a really nice landscape shot of the Grand Canyon. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to navigate this, and these tools will help you throughout every page in Canva. So you've got this picture, and anytime you put something, it goes on top. So think of that as the top layer. It's going to cover up everything. Although for some reason it didn't go directly on top of this one. But normally it goes right on top. So when it's on top, it completely covers everything. So you're going to use this position panel a lot in Canva. And it's got two tabs on this position. So one is just literally all the elements. So if you want to find things, especially when you've got multiple things, it can be hard to navigate. So this is kind of your overview here, and the top layer is going to be on top of everything. So obviously, if you were to resize this picture and make it the full width and length of the page, it's going to cover everything up. So what's really great is you can literally just drag everything to the right order. So because I want all the accent pieces and all the top text on top, I drag this all the way to the bottom. Okay. Then if the perspective or the ratios of the picture is not exactly the size of the canvas, you're going to have a little gap there. So you've got to stretch it so that the shortest side takes up the entire width. So when I stretch it, you'll see that now it's going to click into place there. And of course, it's a little wider than the whole canvas. Um, but that's not a problem because you're going to reorient it the way you want it anyway. So the way you do that is just by dragging, and you'll see the guidelines are so nice in Canva. So you can see this one is exactly in the middle. And then if I go up and down, now it's in the middle. And if I go left, right, it'll show me the middle too. So you can see now it's perfectly centered when you see those crosshairs there. All right. But again, there's no rule there. If you want to skew it to the left or double click, and this is another function that's great. Now it's kind of a layer mask. So what you can do is within the frame, you can you can stretch it, and you'll see that the entire picture does not have to go in the frame, and it kind of grays out the part that's not in. So you could see of all this picture, I'm going to zoom in on the family a little bit by stretching it here, and it's infinitely editable. You can do whatever you want. You can go low, high, all that stuff, and then just click done. Now you're out of it. That's one way to do it. And then you can make these subtle adjustments. You can maybe pull it up and left a little bit. There's just so many things you can do. Another thing you can do, if something is taking up the entire background, is you can right click and bring up the contextual menu, and you could just say replace background. So now it's using that as the background, and you're not accidentally, when you're moving stuff around, you won't accidentally move the picture. But just like with what we did a minute ago, you can double click and you could see how they chose it to be the background, or actually they kept the ratio that I had it. So let's resize it to its original size. You set it at the background, it's going to just sort of size it to fit, and then of course, like I said, just double click. So the same functionality that I use manually can still work with a background, but the benefit of the background is that it doesn't move as easily when you're moving other elements around. Okay, so of course the text is editable as well. You could say, air. Obviously, you're going to title it what you want. Arizona 24. And a little bit on resizing text. You've got this text box, so you can just drag anywhere you want. Notice how there's all this extra space there. So if you're going to like center it, um, it's going to center it within the box, and then you can use these four corners to resize that way. What I like to do is resize the box to fit, so that way it's not um, you're only using the area that you need, and there's not all that extra area, and that'll come into play when you're lining things up. So that's kind of how text works. Of course, you can just undo. I use undo a lot. If I try something out and I don't like it, I can just undo and go back. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to adjust the position of that a little bit, and we're going to move on to the next page. All right, so as you can see here, you've got the main window here, and you've got the thumbnails at the bottom. That's really handy for navigating, and everything is just normal trackpad or mouse clicks where you're dragging and you're sliding. I'm not going to go into how to do that. I'm assuming everyone knows that. If you want to look at it in kind of a full thumbnail view here, you can do that, and you can move things. This is great for moving the whole thing around, and you'll see, I don't know why it's referencing the template. For some reason, the thumbnail is not, it's missing a reference, so it's coming up with that little um, that little cross out symbol. um, so I'm not sure why that's happening. As I put my own pictures, you'll see it should update. The thumbnail should match what's in the actual picture. So now you can just move stuff around, drag and drop however you want. You can delete a page. You can, using these three dots here, you can duplicate a page. All kinds of stuff just to get it exactly how you want it. And this is just a good way to navigate. You can do the same thing here. You can move everything left, right, up, down, different order. So that's just a little bit how to navigate the main window. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to, find the page layout that matches your content. So with any template, as we discussed, there's kind of lots of different pages. This one's got 5 pictures on it. This is like a single picture. So you're going to want to go back to your photos. And so now that we're organized, we're going to go to part 1, which was the Tucson part. And we've got about 20 pictures here. And you're just going to kind of, clump them into different parts. So these 4 at the bottom are kind of the travel part. So what I can do is look for one that has 4 pictures. Let's see, here's a good one. And I will just drag and move that up to the beginning. Okay. Now this is a frame grid. So a little bit about frames. This is a really great function of Canva that you're going to use all the time. So you can have an individual frame. So if you go to your elements and you just click on frame, you're going to see all these frames. And what a frame is basically an outline of a shape that you're going to drop your picture into. So, for example, this one that kind of looks like like someone was writing in freehand or painting, and it's kind of rough. You can do that. You can click on that, and then when you add a picture, and this is what I mean about one thing that annoys me about Canva. So if you're in this folder and you're working on something, chances are you're going to want to work in that folder all the time. But as soon as you navigate off it here and then you go back, you've got to re-navigate to it. So if anybody else out there has any hacks for how to avoid this, let me know. I think that's something that Canva could easily improve on, is just kind of assuming that you're going to want to stay in the folder that you started in. So every time you go back, you do have to navigate, and this is where at least having it in folders makes it pretty quick. Okay, so back to my discussion about frames. I'm in my folder, and say I want to put this one in the frame. Just by once the frame's there, you just click and drag the picture, and it's going to drop it in that frame, and you'll see it's taking the shape of it, right? And then just like with the background and everything else, you can double click and you can fill the frame how you want it. So obviously I'm not going to just do my head, but my face, but as an example, you can see now it's the shape of the frame and I've adjusted what's inside the frame. So that's how frames work. And again, they're a great tool because it's a way to design your layout, especially with these frame grids. So again, just as a demo, you drag it in there, and then if you want to separate that picture out, you just right click and click detach image, and that's going to detach it from that frame. Now, what you may have noticed is as we're going through this page already has a frame, and it's a frame as a grid, which means that it's kind of all it's got the four shapes, which are kind of um, put together in a way, and you can kind of resize it however you want. So I mean, you could literally have two of these on the same page. You can duplicate that, and now you've got 8 pictures. And I'm trying to keep this kind of short, but you could just see how there's just infinite options here, right? So again, I can undo to go back to where I was before. And now I can just drag and drop the pictures in there and then double click. And you'll notice that this picture just isn't the orientation for this picture, for this frame. So I'm going to detach it out of there and drag it over here, kind of get more of the picture in there. And then looks like all of these pictures are kind of landscape pictures. So I'm not sure if any of them are going to kind of fit in here. So that's not a problem because you can always find another one that kind of works. So with all of these being landscape, none of these really fit into this one box that's more of a portrait. So I can just simply go back to my elements, and instead of searching for frame, search grid, and it will bring a grid of frames. And so now there's obviously a million of these, and I could find one that has 4 pictures that's maybe a little bit more landscapey. And you could see there's just so many. But just for the sake of this demonstration, why don't I delete the one that was in there and just add a 4 box here that's all kind of landscape mode. not as not as visually interesting, but it works with this set of pictures. So again, now I'm navigating back to projects, and I've got to go through the whole thing to find the folder, which again is a little annoying. But once you get used to it, you sort of just deal with it. So now I'm back here with a different frame, and this one kind of lends itself more towards what I'm doing here. So sorry to my kids, they're going to get cut off a little bit here. Um, let's put that one there. This one's like another one at the airport. I'm actually going to put this one up here after all. Of course, like anyone who's traveled knows how exhausting it is to be in the airport. And again, just by double clicking, I can resize the picture within the frame to how I want it. Same thing here. Try to get more of the subject matter in there. Okay. And now I've got a page done. And you can keep going after that. So again, by organizing, you want to just kind of figure out each page how many pictures are would look good there, and then of course find the appropriate frame page in the template, or create your own frame, as I just did, to work with the content that you're working with. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this through many pages until the book is complete. I'm going to be deleting pages as I go. I'm going to be moving pages around until I get it all set. I'm going to fast forward through that part and then come back and um, show you how to add some text and some other flourishes to make it more than just a set of pictures. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more as I continue to put this book together. So while I'm putting this page together, I have an opportunity to use one of the awesome AI features of Canva. So this particular picture, I'm actually going to enlarge it to get rid of the parking lot part and get as much in here as we can. I think that looks really good. But notice how the original picture has this car in here. So if I wanted to keep this perspective, this ratio here, but I wanted to get rid of this car, you've really got a powerful tool with the magic eraser. So the way the magic eraser works is it scans the picture and identifies different sections that you can then erase. And then what it does is it fills in the background for you. So while it's not perfect, it will kind of get, um, an element like a photo bomb, or something that's distracting out of the picture. So here's a great opportunity to use Magic Eraser. I want to show you how this works. So you're just going to pick the Magic Eraser, and there's a couple ways you can do this. You can do the brush, which is like, literally take the brush and cross out part that you don't want. What I like to do is do the click. And what the click does is, you'll see, is it scans the entire picture and it identifies these different elements. It looks like it only identified this element. So, it did the car here. Look at that. You can do that car. So not a lot of elements, but it doesn't matter because this is the only element I need to get rid of. And you identify that and you click erase. And it does take a second to do its magic. But look at what it did there. It took out the picture, or it took the car out of the picture, and it kind of put this plant in there. Somehow it figured out the plant, and when I look at it, you can't tell the car is there. The car is gone. And you can look at the before and the after. Here's the before. You have this car there, and now it's gone. Really a cool feature that I really like. And again, it's not perfect. It does match the background close enough where that car is now gone. And now I'm going to get it back to where I wanted it, which is happened to not have the car in it at all. But it was a good opportunity to show you that. And we're going to keep going through the book until it's done. Here's another great AI tool that Canva has. We already used Magic Eraser. Now we've got Magic Expand. So what Magic Expand does is it just expands on the outer edges of the picture, kind of the background. And it's not really for visual effect. It's more for proportions and sizing. So here's a good example where I want this picture, which is sort of the part that I want is sort of landscape, and I'm dragging it uh, into a portrait picture. So as you can see, I can move it left to right, but I can't uh, make it smaller because the shortest edge has to fit in the frame. So I'm limited here as I can move it left and right, but I can't make it smaller to fit all of that in there. So that's where Magic Expand really comes in handy. So let's detach this from the picture. And as you can see, when you have a bunch of frames and you move the picture around, it's going to want to attach it to the different frames. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to just leave it on the page without it actually being in a frame. So you just have to play around with that. It's just a little touchy. But check this out. You can do not just Magic Eraser or Magic Grab, but you can do Magic Expand. And so what I'm going to do is do the whole page. And what that's going to do is it's going to expand the picture to fit the entire page. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm not going to do the entire page. What I want to do is make it taller top to bottom so that I can shrink the entire picture, still be in the frame, and just have the part that I want. So let's do that again, actually. Let's do the Magic Expand, and let's do it freeform, meaning that you can tell it where you want to expand. So instead of expanding the entire thing, I'm going to expand the top, and I'm going to expand the bottom, and see what that does. Now, this one's actually pretty simple because there's not a lot of resolution, and it's pretty black, so it should be pretty easy for it to expand it and kind of look normal. And again, the only reason I'm doing this is not so I could show the whole picture, but it's just so that I can fit this in the frame. So it gives me these four options. They all look about the same. I'm not too worried about the actual resolution, but let's just pick the one that it started with, and let's see if that expanded it enough. So now it's taller top to bottom. So when I put it in this frame and I double click it, a lot more of it fits in there, because before it was more like this, but and I couldn't quite squeeze it all in there. But now that I have this extra expansion to play with, when I resize it to fit, now it kind of all fits in there. So that's an example of Magic Expand, which isn't a very, fun to look at effect, but it does the trick if you want to fit something in a frame and you can't quite get the dimensions in there. Here's another Magic Erase opportunity. I've got this really cool landscape of the ooh-ah point, or the trail going down to the ooh-ah point. And I've got these two dudes, no offense, but don't really know them. So great opportunity to do the Magic Eraser. And just like I did before, I'm going to do click and let it kind of scan. And you could see it found this guy and his backpack. Found this guy. And we're going to erase and see how that looks. Okay, and they're gone. Now it does leave the shadow. So now you can get a little more advanced if you want to get rid of the shadows of the people. Now is where the brush comes in handy, and you can adjust the brush size. And now you can just kind of paint the little area that you want to get rid of. So instead of letting it identify the spot that it wants to erase, you're telling it what to erase. And let's see how this works. I mean, it is pretty amazing how this works. I mean, if you look closely here, you can see it's blurry there, right? Again, it's not perfect. This is where the guy was. So it does a really good job of filling it in, but it's not intended to be kind of perfect. Um, over here you can see it's blurry there as well. And sometimes it gets a little glitchy, but when you back out and now you're looking at it, if you're not looking for the blurry spot, you're probably not going to see it. So that's another great opportunity to use the magic eraser. Now I found another opportunity to do something that's a little different. So sometimes you don't always want your pictures within a picture or separate frames. You want it to overlap. So like I said, this is the path going down to Ooh Ah Point. And if you want to just kind of identify it, you can put this picture right over it and just stick it anywhere you want as kind of a little key to the picture, right? And then you can do some effects there to make it stand out a little bit. I'm a big drop shadow person. So if you go to your edit menu and you can look at all your effects and filters and everything, I just go to shadows and just do a little drop shadow. And that way it's just going to, um, you know, pop the picture out a little bit. You'll see the difference in how it looks. If I zoom in and I switch it, undo it, it's just kind of a picture over there. Since it's got similar colors, you can't really define the edges there. So by adding a little shadow, it just gives you um, some depth. And there's all these different ones. There's different settings, so I could make the angle switch. Oh, wrong picture. Let me undo that. I inadvertently dropped. So I had the bigger picture selected, so it added a drop shadow there. So make sure what you're editing is what is selected is what you intend to edit. So now I've got these shadows, and you could see I can make the background or the shadow a lot more blurry. See how as I zoom out, it's really crisp like a hard edge. And if you want to soften it up with some blur, you can do that. The angle is kind of a lighting thing. It shows switch kind of where the lighting is coming from. And then the distance, you can make the actual shadow much more offset. So you can play around with this, the angle, the blur amount, all these kind of things, just how you like it. There's no real I just kind of do it by eye. You've got the intensity. So now if you want a really hard shadow, you can bump up the intensity. I like to have it a little more subtle. So you can play with those. And then there's different kinds, like the glow kind of does a shadow around the entire thing. Page lift kind of lifts it off the page, and it kind of creates that shadow. So whatever you want an angle. Oh, did the whole picture again. If you want it angled, you want a backdrop, so it looks like it's like a three-dimensional object. So I'm getting a little crazy with this, but you get the picture. I'm just going to back it down to my drop shadow with all of my settings that I did, and you can see it pops out a little bit. You can also put an outline around it, so you can make a border of it. Now the border with the shadow effect doesn't really work together, so sometimes you can't combine these effects. But if you wanted to, get rid of the shadows and just do a border, that's another way to get it to stick out. And you can change the color of the border, all kinds of different things you can do there. And again, this is just another way to make an object stand out when it's on top of another object. Okay, for this final page, instead of doing kind of a symmetrical grid, I'm going to do my license plate page with all the different license plates we saw in a more kind of asymmetrical way. So you can still use frames. There's one that's very common that I like. It's a frame that looks like a Polaroid snapshot, the old Polaroid, for those of you out there who remember the Polaroids where you take a picture and within 5 minutes it develops on its own. So let's see if we can find that one. Here we go. So you've got these, which kind of give you the impression that you're on a clipboard or clip to a board. So it's pretty cool effect there. So you can pick a bunch of these. Um, that one's more like what you would get out of a photo machine. Um, all kinds of different ones, and just rotate them just to give them a kind of asymmetrical, like poster board or cork board feel, whiteboard. You can even do a cork board background. So you can look for um, cork texture in the background until you find the one you want. That one's a brick wall. So this is in the background section. Just a quick note on backgrounds, you can do, they'll do, landscapes, patterns, gradients, all kinds of different things as backgrounds. But you really are not limited to those. You can go back to your elements and pick cork and search, and you could just find a photo that you can then right click and use as your background. And like I said before, or like I showed you before, you can double click and move it around. So this kind of gives it that corkboardy feel. Um, you know, let's see if a drop shadow works on this. No, it won't let you do that. Of course, you could do a map and do like pins. Whoops. All kinds of stuff. Let's find a good one. I like this one. Make that the background. That's a little too much. So maybe I'll just want to kind of make this into a frame here. Resize that and center it. And then put it more towards the back. So we still have our cork background. Whoops. But then we're going to have these kind of license plate pictures kind of scattered all over. So as you can see, I'm having a lot of fun just finding different elements to use. I'll keep playing around with this and show you what it's like when it's done. Okay, so now I've spent about an hour of just having fun playing around, moving things around, trying different things, experimenting, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turns out. I've got 13 pages of kind of memories from Arizona. And now, as I mentioned, we can kind of add some text and some flourishes. And really there's infinite possibilities. Back in the element tab, this page I made like a cork board with a map of Arizona. So you could do things like push pins, which are pretty cool. So you could say this one was up in the Grand Canyon, was one of the three or four stops we made. Grand Canyon. And then maybe a different color for down in Tucson. And then maybe like a different color. All right, now this one, interesting, has a white background. So this is a great opportunity for the background remover. So let's see if the background remover works here. So we have a push pin with a white background. We want to get rid of the white. And look at that. Within 2 seconds, not even a second, it was able to take this image, and now we've got a push pin there as well. Now this one you can even, if you want to get fancy, I'm a big shadow guy, as I mentioned before. You can try and see if adding a drop shadow, what that'll do. And I kind of like that. It gives it a little bit more depth. Let's see if it works with this one as well. So shadows are a great way to create depth without doing a lot of work. So now I've got our push pins there. That's one thing you could do. Now, I also mentioned texts. So we've got this page, which is sort of boring. It's just 4 travel pictures and one of us getting there. So now you've got all kinds of text things you can do. So the most basic is just to do a text box. And this works just like Word documents, word processing documents. You can pick whatever um, font you want. And um, I always have trouble picking out my fonts. This is one of the things I struggle with. It's just so many choices, right? There's just a million things you can do. And of course, you can change the size, the color. Um, there's also lots of good effects. So you can do your shadows. This kind of makes it have a shadow. So similar to what you can do with a picture, you can do a shadow effect. You can make the shadow whatever color. So if you want to do it kind of traditional, make it like a true shadow, make it black. But I made it like a dark gray. You can make it any color you want, the shadow. Um, you can do so many other effects. You can do this neon effect. And then you can do an echo, which is kind of like a triplicate shadow. You can do a splice, which will kind of like create like a 3D off-centered effect. No shortage of things you can do. And then each one of these has settings that you can adjust to get to what you like. So you could say, day 1 is travel. Okay. Now a little bit about sizing the text box. So as I mentioned before, you know, you can expand the size of the text box without expanding the size of the font itself. And so it naturally made this onto 2 lines. So you can do the corner handles will resize it, but these center ones here on the sides will resize the text box without doing the actual uh, resizing of the text. So you can kind of play around with that. Um, you know, kind of make it fun here. Maybe find a color that just pops a little bit. Maybe something maybe more of a bright red. Make it bigger there. I'm actually not a big fan of the splice. Let's just try the echo effect and make the echo maybe a little more subtle, but also something light. Let's see here. do kind of a like a light gray, just so it's not overpowering in the red. And you can resize that to fit. And of course, you can go to each of these pages and make the captions you want until you're happy with each page, and continue to do so until every page is where you like it and in the right order. And once you do that, you can go to the step of setting up the printing. So that's the next step. That's a much shorter step. This is the longest step in the process, but it's also the most fun. So thank you for watching this step of the photo book presentation. And we'll be back to wrap it up with finishing it off and getting it printed in the next episode. Thank you for watching.